Water's good enough for poor folks. Alana, my daughter's future mother-in-law, said, laughing coarsely. I couldn't hide my discomfort at her vulgarity. Oh, could it be? Right after that, my daughter's sister-in-law-to-be, Raina, looked at me, her face turning pale. I just smiled slightly. I'm Sonia Rollins. Turning 54 this year. I divorced my ex-husband when our daughter, Krista, was 3. The reason for our divorce was irreconcilable differences. He wouldn't work and spent his days drinking. No matter what I said, he never changed. Naturally, our financial situation worsened. I didn't need a family like that, so I decided to divorce him. We divorced without any child support or alimony. Since then, it's been just Krista and me. I was a housewife until the divorce. When I had to raise Krista alone, I started working desperately. I couldn't leave young Krista alone at home, so I initially took on work-from-home jobs to make ends meet. Of course, life was tough. Working from morning till night, the pay was low, leading to constant saving. There were times, a day before payday, when I ran out of money and went without food. Despite the hardships, I managed to raise Krista into adulthood. With Krista becoming a working adult, I found myself with more free time and started dedicating more time to work. Leveraging my experience in simple tasks, I began creating handmade items. This eventually turned into a successful business. There's also been a change in my personal life. Krista got engaged. Not long after Krista started working at her company, she began dating a man named Nicholas. Nicholas is Krista's boss at work and is 5 years her senior. I've seen a photo of Nicholas that Krista showed me. He seemed like a fine young man. It appears Krista has learned from her father's bad example, as Nicholas gives off a serious impression. I'm delighted with the happiness Krista has found. Now, in the latter half of my life, I've decided to live as I please. That was my thought. Then, one day, Mom, I need to talk to you about something. Krista approached me after dinner. It was unusual for Krista to come to me hesitantly like this. While thinking this, I responded to Krista. What's the rush? You seem off. What's going on? Then Krista said to me, modestly, I'm going to marry Nicholas. Really? That's wonderful. Congratulations. Since I haven't actually met Nicholas, I don't know what kind of person he is. I hoped he would be just like the person in the photo. I'm glad you feel that way, Mom. I was worried you might oppose it. Krista seemed relieved that I didn't oppose her decision. Her face clearly showed relief. Then Krista made a suggestion. So, I was hoping you could meet Nicholas this weekend. It seems Krista wanted me to meet Nicholas before they got married. Considering how serious Krista is, she probably wanted to show me Nicholas's face to put me at ease. I nodded strongly towards Krista. All right. I'll meet Nicholas. I want to see what kind of person he is. Mom, Krista said, looking happy. And so, it was decided that Nicholas and I would meet. Sunday of the following weekend. I was waiting at home for Krista and him. It was just before 11 a.m. It wouldn't be long until Krista brought Nicholas over. Then, at that moment, the doorbell rang. Yes. When I opened the door, there stood Krista and Nicholas. Nice to meet you. I'm Nicholas Friedman, engaged to Krista. Nicholas said, greeting me. I felt a bit relieved by Nicholas's politeness. Krista is my precious only daughter. I'm glad her partner is a decent person. Please come in, I said, inviting Krista and Nicholas into the house. Nicholas still seemed like a fine young man after entering our home. He brought famous brand sweets as a gift. And he shared the story of how he and Krista met with a smile. "Nicholas, stop it. You're embarrassing me," Krista said, blushing, addressing Nicholas. Seeing Krista like this felt fresh to me. However, the warm atmosphere changed in the next moment. "By the way, is your father at work today?" Nicholas asked, looking around curiously. His expression was somewhat puzzled. I was taken aback by Nicholas's question. Glancing at Krista, she looked a bit pale. She probably hadn't told Nicholas about being raised by a single mother. Honestly, it was wrong of Krista to keep it a secret. In traditional households, single mothers often face prejudice. I braced myself to explain the situation to Nicholas. "Krista might not have mentioned it, but I'm divorced and a single mother." Nicholas's face, previously smiling, went blank for a moment. "What's wrong?" I asked Nicholas, feeling anxious. Maybe it wasn't good for me to have told him. That's what I thought. But in the next moment, Nicholas was already smiling. "It's nothing, please don't worry," he said, still smiling. "Is that so?" I said, tilting my head, puzzled. Despite being confused by Nicholas's change of expression, I didn't press further. After that, the marriage talks proceeded smoothly. Krista seemed to enjoy planning the wedding, asking, "What kind of dress should I choose? What color do you think is good for me, Mom?" With excitement. "Well, maybe a color you like?" I responded, but couldn't quite feel at ease. I couldn't forget Nicholas's expression from that moment. Nicholas's expression went blank. Perhaps his family has strict views on single parenthood. So, I asked Krista, "What did Nicholas say on the way back that day? About us being a single mother household?" Maybe Nicholas is facing opposition to marrying Krista from his parents. I asked, but Krista answered with a puzzled look. "He didn't say anything special?" "Mom, aren't you worrying too much?" Since Krista said that, I couldn't ask any more. However, my bad feeling proved right. It happened one night. "Mom." As soon as Krista returned, she called out my name. Her expression was quite dark, and I asked her in surprise, "Krista, why such a gloomy face? Did something happen?" Even though I asked, Krista remained silent. It was unusual for the optimistic Krista to look so troubled. After a while, Krista hesitantly began to speak. "Actually, it seems Nicholas's family isn't too pleased about our marriage," Krista said, looking sad. "Why?" "Because we're a single mother family. They think Nicholas will struggle because we're poor and from a single parent home." That's an awful thing to say. It would be very hard to hear such things from the in-laws. I asked Krista seriously, "Did Nicholas's mother say that?" Krista nodded silently. I was outraged by the turn of events. Just because we're a single mother family doesn't mean they should assume we're poor. We've had our struggles, but now we live a normal life. I work as hard as any man. And then Krista told me something unbelievable. Nicholas's sister also said some things. "Like what?" I asked Krista. "She said we're just after Nicholas's money. That it's impossible for them to accept us as family." Krista answered, looking disheartened. Her face looked incredibly lonely. Krista must have been deeply hurt by these direct comments. It's terrible that they would say such things about me without even meeting me. I can't believe Nicholas's parents. "What did Nicholas say at that time?" I asked Krista. And I remembered Nicholas's expression when he came to our house the other day. Maybe his expressionless face was because he imagined his family's reaction. It seems his family has quite a prejudice against single mothers. I started to worry about the future. Then Krista said, Nicholas defended me. After all, I work at the same company as Nicholas, so there's no way I'd ask for money. I felt relieved. If Nicholas is on your side, that's reassuring. I found myself saying that without thinking. If Nicholas had sided with his family instead of defending Krista, I would have been worried about her future. She would probably continue to face unpleasant remarks from his family. But if Nicholas is on her side, it felt somewhat better. A few days later, Krista suggested having a family meeting with Nicholas's family before the wedding. Mom, I want to have a family meeting with Nicholas's family before the wedding. I'm really sorry. According to Krista, it was Alana's suggestion. You should greet your fiancé's parents at least once. Your mother has that much common sense, right? She was told. Nicholas and I couldn't exactly refuse. I'm really sorry, Krista said, apologizing and being considerate of me. For Krista's marriage introduction, we are meeting with his family. Honestly, I have no idea what they might say. I don't really want to go, but it seems right to follow through with the courtesy. It's okay, I responded with my agreement. Then, the day of the marriage introduction arrived. Krista and I went to a restaurant near his parents' house. The reason for a restaurant, as Krista told me, was because Alana had said, We can't have you in our house when you're not married yet. There's a fine dining restaurant nearby, that will do, won't it? The restaurant Alana chose charges $300 per person for a course meal. I go there occasionally for business, but hardly ever privately. I was puzzled by Alana's choice of restaurant. It seems Alana had also chosen a cafe near their house for Krista's first greeting to the family. Moreover, Krista ended up paying for Alana's meal as well. According to Alana, it's only natural since you're becoming my son's wife. Apparently, Nicholas reimbursed the meal cost later. Why does Alana act so arrogantly, even though she's the one inviting us for the marriage greeting? I couldn't help but feel uncomfortable. But if I, as Krista's mother, refuse now, Krista will surely be criticized for being rude. After getting married, Krista might end up feeling uncomfortable. So, reluctantly, I accepted the proposal. Then, I put on light makeup and headed to the designated place. I usually wear full makeup for work, but I thought it best to keep it understated today. My outfit was also much more modest than usual. A flashy outfit might give them the impression that I'm extravagant. Given that we're already being accused of being after Nicholas's money, a modest outfit seemed wise. With these thoughts, Krista and I entered the upscale restaurant and were led by the staff to a private room. Upon opening the door, Nicholas and his family were there. Krista, Sonia, thank you for coming today. Nicholas greeted us politely. Thank you as well for today. I also expressed my gratitude to Nicholas. Then I faced father-in-law Kevin, mother-in-law Lana, and sister-in-law Raina. His parents and Raina smirked unpleasantly and looked down on Krista and me. It was clear at a glance that we were not welcomed by his family. I greeted them with heightened wariness. Thank you for giving us your precious time today. I'm Sonia, Krista's mother. It's a pleasure to meet you. Then Alana said with a nasty smile. I'd rather not have any further association, you know. Mom! Nicholas admonished Alana, but she didn't seem to care. Just being from a single-parent family is problematic enough. You must be struggling with money. Even your clothes are so plain. Alana scrutinized my outfit from top to bottom and said. Then she laughed mockingly. My attempt to dress modestly had backfired. Raina also hurled insults while laughing. You could have married someone decent. Poor Nicholas, stuck with a poor mother and daughter. I was irritated by Raina's comment. Such remarks were too rude for a first meeting. But I couldn't disrupt Krista's marriage. "Excuse me." I reluctantly took my seat. Perhaps because I didn't retort. The in-laws looked at me as if they found me amusing. Krista looked at me with concern. Nicholas seemed a bit angry at his family's lack of manners. His brows were furrowed. Unaware of his demeanor, Alana was in high spirits. "Today, we've reserved a course meal. It's $300. Alana excitedly told Reina. "Really? I'm looking forward to it because the courses here are so expensive. We have to eat a lot." Reina was giddy with excitement. Kevin nodded happily as well. After a while, the staff brought the dishes. It was a colorful array of amuse-bouche. At this restaurant, 3 types of amuse-bouche are served on one plate. They all looked very delicious. But in front of me, there was only water. I was about to call the staff back, but they had already left the room. Only the water was left in front of me, a stark reminder. Nicholas looked at the scene, dumbfounded. Reina, knowing what was happening, laughed mockingly. Krista noticed it too and said with concern, "Mom." Then, in the next moment, Alana laughed nastily. "Poor people are fine with just water," Alana said, laughing crudely. I showed my discomfort at her vulgarity. "What does this mean?" I asked Alana. The in-laws had called us to this restaurant. Yet, they had no intention of hosting us properly. I was quite irritated inside. Alana glanced at me, then laughed as if she was pleased. Even though I was angry, she didn't seem to care. She seemed to enjoy it, actually. "Oh? Not only are you a poor single mother, but are you also stupid? Did you really think someone worthless like you would be welcomed?" Alana hurled insults at me. Kevin nodded as if it was to be expected. "Don't you feel ashamed to be a single parent? A woman who was left by her husband, you're full of flaws. A plain woman like you becomes unnecessary, right?" Kevin said, laughing crudely. It wasn't that my ex-husband left me, but Kevin's assumption was unilateral. I truly thought this was unbelievable as a human being. Reina also laughed joyfully. "I don't want to end up like Krista's mother. Working for low wages even though she's a woman. It's really pitiful without any feminine charm." While saying this, she looked down on me. "Mom. I'm sorry." Krista looked like she was about to cry. She must feel responsible for putting me in this difficult situation. Krista was looking down. I had reached my limit of patience. Being looked down upon like this, I couldn't stay quiet any longer. It might be time to fight back. At that moment, "Enough already! All of you ganging up on Krista's mother. Aren't you ashamed as adults?" Nicholas yelled loudly. I was surprised that Nicholas stood up for me. "Nicholas." Krista also looked surprised. Nicholas was red-faced and angry at his family. However, Alana and the others showed no remorse. Alana, still laughing joyfully, said, "There's no need to defend poor people. Why is Nicholas getting so angry?" Kevin nodded significantly. Nicholas's words seemed to have no effect on them. I could only be dumbfounded by his parents. They must lack common sense. It might be time for a counterattack. I had a last resort that would surprise the in-laws. At that moment, Reina started to look at my face. I ended up glaring at Reina. Then Reina muttered, "Oh, could it be?" Right after that, Reina looked at me and her face turned pale. It seems she finally realized who I really am. I let out a slight smile. Reina, looking at me, was trembling. "No way." Noticing her reaction, Kevin asked Reina with a puzzled look, What's wrong with you? You've been acting strange for a while. Alana also looked at Reina, surprised. You're as pale as a ghost. Are you feeling okay? Alana spoke to Reina with concern. Still, Reina's trembling didn't stop. Given the truth Reina realized, it's understandable. Then Reina asked Kevin. Dad, your company is Globecrafts, right? Reina looked at Kevin, seeking confirmation. Globecrafts is a small to medium-sized enterprise with about 100 employees. The salaries aren't comparable to those of major companies. And I am familiar with Globecrafts. The reason I know it is because it's related to my work. Kevin said with a laugh. What's this all of a sudden? I might look like this, but I'm working hard as the sales manager. And Kevin continued. I used my connections to hire you as a part-time worker in our company, didn't I? Be grateful. Kevin said, laughing. That's right. Reina's face fell, looking resigned. Kevin asked Reina, puzzled. But why are you asking this? Are you trying to show off because this poor person is likely employed on a non-regular basis, and you work as a regular employee? Kevin looked down on me with a disdainful gaze. This man is about to face a dire situation. I vowed in my heart. Then Reina sighed lightly and began to speak. Dad, don't you know the company's clients? The company's clients? Kevin asked, puzzled. Alana looked stunned. Being a housewife, she didn't seem to understand much. Reina hesitantly explained. I've met Krista's mother before. Inside the company. She was wearing more makeup then, and I didn't recognize her right away. Kevin seemed confused. What do you mean inside the company? I'm sure I remember the faces of the employees, including part-timers, but there's no older woman like that? I frowned at being called an older woman. But it seems Kevin was too preoccupied to notice. Trying desperately to remember as he heard inside the company. However, I haven't spoken directly to Kevin, so it's understandable if he doesn't remember. As I thought this, Reina began to apologize. Krista's mother! I'm really sorry for what happened. Seeing Reina's behavior, the in-laws began to get agitated. Why apologize? There's no need to say sorry to such a poor person. Alana said. That's right. Don't you have any pride? Apologizing to a poor person like this. Kevin shouted at Reina. Reina glared sharply at her parents. Dad, Mom. Krista's mother is actually very wealthy. Much more than Dad could ever be. What did you say? Kevin glared at Reina. Being told such a thing by his own daughter must have been unexpected. Alana, too, reacted to Reina's statement with, How could you say that? Screaming almost hysterically. Reina said with a resigned attitude. Because Krista's mother is the president. I've served her tea in the company's reception room. You know Roland's Bags, right? Kevin froze upon hearing that name. Then he turned his neck to look at me. I deliberately smiled. Kevin's face turned pale. Roland's Bags. Isn't that the brand the president finally convinced for a collaboration that's supposed to happen? Then Alana screamed. Roland's Bags, that's the one with bags in department stores, right? Even my bag is from there. Alana said, looking over her bag multiple times. When we entered this restaurant's private room, I noticed a familiar bag. Alana was holding it carefully under her chair. It's a breach of manners in a high-end restaurant, but it must be her favorite bag. I told Alana with a smile. That's a magazine giveaway, isn't it? I'm honored that you're using my brand. Alana's face turned red. Then she looked down, embarrassed. She must feel ashamed that her bag was recognized as a magazine giveaway. I took out my business card from my card holder. I am Sonia Rollins, the representative of Rollins Bags. The in-laws scrutinized the business card carefully. To think you were actually the president! Kevin was trembling as he looked at the business card. Alana looked incredulous. I watched the two staring silently at the business card and said, "We were supposed to collaborate with Globecrafts, but it seems like that collaboration won't be possible anymore. Such a shame." Hearing this, Kevin looked disturbed. Why? That collaboration is the most important project the president has been working on. If we cancel it, our company will, Kevin said, trembling with fear. What's going on? Alana asked Kevin, confused. The truth is, Globecrafts is in a precarious financial situation. Compared to the past, fewer people are making handmade items. When I was young, my mother used to sew everything by hand. But now, cheap ready-made products are abundant, probably a sign of the times. Globecrafts has been hit hard by this trend, with sales declining year by year. When Globecrafts' president proposed the collaboration, he mentioned it was a strategy to turn around the company's dire situation. However, I have collaborated with many famous brands. So, honestly, I wasn't very interested in collaborating with a small to medium-sized enterprise like Globecrafts. Initially, I declined the president's proposal, but eventually, I was persuaded by his enthusiasm and agreed. We decided to collaborate with Globecrafts to make bags. But now, that's a thing of the past. Kevin was trembling. He must be terrified of what's to come. Ignoring Kevin, I quietly said, "The collaboration with Globecrafts didn't seem to offer much benefit. I was just moved by the president's enthusiasm. But a company that looks down on Krista." I stared at Kevin with a cold gaze. Kevin was sweating under my stare. Then, in the next moment, he apologized to me. What? While Alana was confused by Kevin's apology, he desperately sought my forgiveness. Krista and Nicholas were also surprised by Kevin's apology. "I'm truly sorry." Kevin is apologizing, clearly not caring about how it looks. To me, Kevin's apology doesn't resonate at all. After all, an apology that comes only after he realizes my position is just to protect himself. There's no genuine remorse there. I spoke with a chillingly cold voice. An apology now? After you've looked down on Krista and me all this time. To think that an apology would suffice after all this. Kevin's mindset must be overly optimistic. Then, realizing that his apology wouldn't turn the situation around, Kevin quickly stood up. It was merely a performance after all. Alana, looking bewildered at me, said, "We're going to be family, so you'll forgive us, right?" She said that flippantly, looking at me. Then Alana continued, "I'm a big fan of Rollins Bags. Since we're family, I'll get some products for free, right?" Alana looked at me with hopeful eyes. I was so appalled that I couldn't say anything. "Mom, that's too convenient," Nicholas said, frowning and sternly admonishing her. Even for Alana, that comment was too far beyond the pale. But Alana, seemingly not understanding, said, "Why not? There must be plenty of stock, right? It wouldn't hurt to give away a few." Getting into a worse mood, Kevin and Raina looked at Alana with dismay. I told Alana, "Our products are not free to give away. After all, you are strangers to us." Alana looked frustrated at my words. "Krista and our Nicholas are getting married, right? So we are family. A family should provide financial support." You're the president after all. Alana said this with a straight face. After all the disdainful poor-calling, this was her attitude. She clearly had no remorse. Nicholas finally lost his patience with Alana's attitude. Mom, you changed your attitude just because you found out Krista's mom is the president? Aren't you ashamed? Nicholas, his face red, reproached Alana. But Alana, unfazed, laughed it off. It doesn't matter. A president must have more money than they know what to do with, right? Share a little with us. I quietly told Alana. Even if Krista and Nicholas get married, I have no intention of forming any ties with you. Alana, surprised, tried to cozy up to me. Don't say that. Once Nicholas gets married, we'll be family anyway, so giving away a bag or two. Alana was infuriating. As I was about to retort, Nicholas stepped between Alana and me. Nicholas. When I asked, Nicholas looked troubled. I knew Sonia was the president. And I kept silent, knowing my parents would bother Sonia if they found out. Kevin looked regretful at Nicholas's confession. You knew? If you had told me, I would have. If you had known, you'd act just like Mom, right? Nicholas looked at Kevin with a cold gaze. How dare you speak to your parents like that? Keep this up, and you're disowned. Kevin shouted at Nicholas. Krista was puzzled by their exchange. Nicholas sighed and declared, I'm fine with being disowned. I'll sever ties with you all. Why would you say such a thing? After all we've done to raise you. Alana, shaken, spoke to Nicholas. Kevin and Raina, stunned, stared at Nicholas. They hadn't expected him to say he'd cut ties. I want to cherish Krista going forward. I don't need a family that disregards Krista and Sonia. Nicholas! Alana collapsed in tears. Kevin and Raina stood there, dumbfounded. Being disowned by their beloved son must be incredibly hard. But that's solely the responsibility of Alana and the rest of the in-laws. Live with your regrets. I'm sure you'll struggle in the future, I said, smiling lightly. Then Krista joined in with my statement. We won't even tell you if we have children. She said this directly to her in-laws. Not being able to see the grandchild. Please, spare us that. Alana cried out in agony. Amidst this, Nicholas murmured, We're done being a family. At his words, Kevin and Raina tried to cling to us with faces about to cry. Ignoring such in-laws, Krista, Nicholas, and I left the restaurant. Afterward, I heard Kevin and Raina were fired from the company. The day after the incident at the restaurant, I told the president of Globecrafts that I wanted to cancel the collaboration. The president tried to persuade me several times, but I refused. I cannot collaborate with a company that harbors individuals capable of such disdain. While I sympathized with the president's desire to save his company, I couldn't support a company that employed Kevin and his ilk. I explained the situation to the president. Then the president became furious. Apparently, the president has a daughter about Krista's age and couldn't forgive Kevin and Raina's actions. The collaboration with me was crucial for Globecrafts. Kevin and Raina had ruined such an important collaboration. It's understandable that the president couldn't forgive them. Kevin was already of age, and Raina was employed part-time through Kevin's connections. After being fired from Globecrafts, finding a new job would be very tough for them. And Alana was a housewife. She had already been cut off by Nicholas, their only breadwinner. Once, the in-laws came directly to our company to negotiate. Please collaborate with Globecrafts. If you do, the president will rehire me. Even if not a collaboration, provide financial support. Our family is suffering, you know? Families help each other out. They both pleaded desperately. After treating people like poor people and now suddenly claiming family, it's laughable. I made it clear. Neither collaboration nor financial support is possible. Nicholas has also severed ties with you, hasn't he? Please leave now. But the in-laws wouldn't leave. But... trying somehow to cling to me. I firmly told the in-laws again. Never appear in front of me again. If I see you again, I'll call the police. Perhaps because I mentioned the police, Kevin said. Please, not the police. We won't come again. And left with Alana. The in-laws' clothes were dirty. They probably weren't living well. They who had once scorned others as poor. It's purely their own fault. Apparently, Raina has since lived almost entirely shut in. Struggling to find a job and unlikely to marry. Despairing about the future, Raina barely leaves her room. Her future seems to hold nothing but despair. 3 years have passed since then. Now, Krista, Nicholas, and I live together. Ideally, as newlyweds, Krista and Nicholas should live alone. But Nicholas said, I think it's safer for Krista if she's with you in case of anything. And they decided to live with me. Nicholas, busy with work, often helps with household chores alongside Krista. I'm truly grateful. And a significant change has occurred for the three of us. One day, Krista approached me with a serious look. Mom. Worried something might have happened to Krista, I became anxious. Then, in the next moment, she smiled. It looks like I'm going to be a mom. Krista joyfully stroked her belly. That's wonderful, Krista. Congratulations. Delighted, I hugged Krista. Nicholas smiled happily beside Krista and me. I'm sure various things will happen from now on. But if it's us, we can surely overcome them. I'm also looking forward to meeting the new grandchild. Imagining our happy future, a natural smile spread across my face.